When the romance book 50 Shades of Grey went viral and was made into a movie, it made the concepts of sadism and masochism more widely known. A masochist is a person who gets pleasure when they experience pain or discomfort. A sadist is someone who gets pleasure from causing pain to others. BDSM stands for bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, sadism and masochism. The word masochism itself is derived from this author, Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. Venus in Furs tells the story of the original Simp. Yes, before Pokimane and the age of internet fandom, in the 1870s, simping was a thing too. Simp is an internet slang term for someone, usually male, who shows excessive deference, submissiveness, or attention toward another person, typically a woman, in pursuit of romance or affection, often sacrificing their own dignity or self-respect. There is a fascinating overlap between psychology, incel culture, and Masoch's book. The book isn't just erotic fiction, it's a philosophical argument about power in relationships. The two main characters are Severin, a man, and Wanda, a woman. Their relationship follows a cycle. First, Severin begs Wanda to dominate him. Second, Wanda initially refuses, saying that would be too strange. Third, through Severin's persistent begging, she eventually agrees. Fourth, Severin loves the abuse. He loves being whipped, humiliated, and tortured. Fifth, Wanda becomes uncomfortable or even bored and wants normal love, a normal loving relationship with Severin. 6. Severin refuses, insisting that this is what he really wants and loves. 7. The relationship collapses, with Wanda distancing herself from Severin, and then the cycle begins all over again, with Severin begging Wanda to dominate him once more. The psychological angle comes in when Severin describes a childhood trauma involving his aunt. Basically, Severin rejected the advances of a young, attractive chambermaid, and with no explanation, they all seize him and tie him up, and his aunt begins whipping him until he bleeds. Then afterwards she forces him to worship her. About 30 years after this book was written, Sigmund Freud comes up with the idea that childhood trauma informs adult behavior. Freud was inspired by Leopold von Sacher-Masoch's novel to the extent that he coined the term masochism, based on the author's name, because of Venus in Furs. Isn't it a little strange to develop a general theory of human psychology based on a novel where a guy gets beaten by his aunt and then develops an unusual sexual fetish for cruel punishment? In the novel, Severin builds an entire philosophy around domination and submission. To understand Severin's philosophical argument about men versus women, dominance versus submission, let's read the opening scene of the novel, where Severin is a rich old man who abuses his young, attractive maid. Just then the door opened, and an attractive, stoutish blonde girl entered. She had wise, kindly eyes, was dressed in black silk, and brought us cold meat and eggs with our tea. Severin took one of the latter and decapitated it with his knife. "Didn't I tell you that I want them soft-boiled?" he cried, with a violence that made the young woman tremble. "But my dear Sevchu," she said timidly. "Sevchu nothing," he yelled. "You are to obey. Obey, do you understand?" "But Severin," I said, placing my hand on his arm, "how can you treat a pretty young woman thus?" So this scene takes place in the future, and it's a young man who's asking him why he has this philosophy. "Look at the woman," Severin replies, blinking humorously with his eyes. "Had I flattered her, she would have cast the noose around my neck. But now, when I bring her up with the kanchuk, she adores me." "Nonsense. Nonsense nothing. That is the way you have to break in women." "Well, if you like it, live like a pasha in your harem, but don't lay down theories for me." "Why not?" he said animatedly. "Goethe's 'You must be hammer or anvil' is absolutely appropriate to the relation between man and woman. Didn't Lady Venus in your dream prove that to you? Woman's power lies in man's passion, and she knows how to use it. If man doesn't understand himself, he has only one choice: to be the tyrant over or the slave of woman. As soon as he gives in, his neck is under the yoke, and the lash will soon fall upon him." So then Severin says, I know from experience, I've felt the lash, do you care to know how? And that's how the rest of the book takes place, in a big flashback, basically. So his whole philosophy is that you need to dominate or be dominated when it comes to man and woman relationships, and that there is no third alternative. If you are trained in critical thinking, you would recognize this immediately as a false dichotomy, or false dilemma, a logical fallacy that presents only two, often extreme options as the only possibilities, when in fact more options or a gray area exist. It is used to force a choice. To put it in two-button meme format, Severin's philosophy is abuse women or women abuse you. Like an incel, Severin argues that women are naturally cruel in love. Wanda argues that things will end badly. She turns out to be right. But Severin insists, it shall never end. Only death shall part us. If you cannot be mine, all mine and for always, then I want to be your slave, serve you, suffer everything from you, if only you won't drive me away. With a modern understanding of relationships, we understand that a healthy relationship has elements like open, calm communication, honesty, mutual earned trust, and respect for each other's values, equal agency in decision-making. In an unhealthy relationship, there's suspicion, mistrust, lack of communication, domineering behaviors. And in abusive relationships, the worst of all, there's control by one partner, which is exactly what Severin begs for. There's unsafe, hurtful behavior, which is also what Severin begs for. And a general theme of one person harming the other, or both people harming each other, which is definitely what happens throughout this whole novel. So how does the book end? Well, after their cycle of abuse repeats throughout the novel, the Greek, also confusingly known as the Russian prince or Prince Alexis, is a super handsome, super rich guy who is also an amazing fighter, and basically every woman wants him. He's the ideal Giga Chad. Wanda is immediately interested in him. He's very young. He's educated in Paris. He's an atheist. He's an amazing fighter. He's super brave. All in all then, a man, she cried with sparkling eyes. He's said to be tremendously rich. When Severin realizes that he's losing Wanda to the Greek, he threatens to kill himself. I shall kill myself here before your eyes, I murmured dully. Do what you please, Wanda replied with complete indifference, but let me go to sleep, she yawned aloud. I am very sleepy. Instead of confronting the relationship like a normal person, he spirals into melodrama and threatens to kill himself if he loses her. He's trying to force Wanda to reassure him and prove her loyalty. But Wanda doesn't react the way he expects. She responds with cool indifference, almost boredom, before beating him in the face for annoying her. This moment mirrors incel culture today. Severin is a man who believes his intense suffering entitles him to a woman's love. The scene exposes a flaw in Severin's worldview. He tries to claim victimhood, and Wanda refuses to be manipulated by it. As punishment for Severin's manipulation attempts, Wanda has the Greek beat the crap out of Severin, causing Severin to feel humiliated by his rival. Can he tear himself free, she asked. He has threatened to kill me. So there was an earlier scene where Severin gets really desperate and threatens to kill Wanda with a knife, and she plays along and pretends like everything's fine in the moment so that he doesn't do that. And then afterwards she sets up this trap for him where his rival pops out from behind a curtain after she has him tied up. And then they beat the crap out of Severin, which he totally deserves. If you search for incel stock streamer, you can see a recent and alarming incident occurred when some Twitch streamers were targeted by a man who made death threats while they were conducting a live in-person stream at the Santa Monica Pier. The Santa Monica Pier incident. While walking at Pacific Park, a man approached the group of female streamers, asked to sing to them, and demanded the streamer's phone number. When the request was refused, the man became agitated and followed them, prompting the streamers to call him a stalker. Threats. The situation escalated off camera, with the man threatening, I'll effing fight you right now, and I'll effing kill you right now. So in the earlier scene, Severin goes crazy and threatens to kill Wanda. Scarcely master of myself any longer, I seized her by the wrist and forced her to the ground so that she lay on her knees before me. Severin, she cried. Rage and terror were painted on her face. I shall kill you if you marry him, I threatened. The words came hoarsely and dully from my breast. You are mine. I won't let you go. I love you too much. Then I clutched her and pressed her close to me. My right hand involuntarily seized the dagger which I still had in my belt. So Wanda says calmly, I like you that way. Now you are a man, and at this moment I know I still love you. So she pretends to go along with it. She pretends like she's impressed by his little incel threatening stalker behavior. Then she has him tied up, pretending like they're playing one of their BDSM games again, and then the Greek steps out from behind a curtain. "Now watch me break him in," said the Greek. He showed his teeth, and his face acquired the bloodthirsty expression which startled me the first time I saw him. And he began to apply the lash so mercilessly, with such frightful force, that I quivered under each blow, and began to tremble all over with pain. Tears rolled down over my cheeks. In the meantime, Wanda lay on the ottoman in her fur jacket, supporting herself on her arm. She looked on with cruel curiosity, and was convulsed with laughter. The sensation of being whipped by a successful rival before the eyes of an adored woman cannot be described. I almost went mad with shame and despair. So Severin never sees Wanda again, and then 3 years later he receives a letter from her explaining that she went off and married the Greek as she wanted to, and that the Greek died in a duel, and now Severin is alone as this bitter old man who abuses his young, attractive maid, because his philosophy is that you have to abuse women or be abused, and there's no other alternative. So then we return to the frame story where Severin is the bitter old man, and there's a young man basically asking him about his life story. "And the moral of the story," I said to Severin when I put the manuscript down on the table. "That I was a donkey," he exclaimed without turning around, for he seemed to be embarrassed. "If only I had beaten her." "But the moral?" "That woman, as nature has created her, and as man is at present educating her, is his enemy. She can only be his slave or his despot, but never his companion. This she can become only when she has the same rights as he, and is his equal in education and work. At present, we have only the choice of being hammer or anvil, and I was the kind of donkey who let a woman make a slave of him. Do you understand? The moral of the tale is this: whoever allows himself to be whipped deserves to be whipped." If you read this line again carefully, she can only be his slave or his despot, but never his companion. She can only be his companion when she has the same rights as he, and is his equal in education and work. There are at least 3 ways to understand this ending. The first is an anti-feminist reading. The novel concludes, women must dominate or be dominated. If you agree with this thinking, you are basically following the incel line of thinking, and you're falling for the false dichotomy. You're falling for the trap of Severin's philosophy. If you think about the fact that Severin is humiliated and shown to be a fool throughout the novel, then you think the point must go the other way. Proto-feminist reading, the text explicitly calls for equal rights and education for women so that they can be companions to men rather than abuse or be abused. However, this is undermined by the fact that this only comes up in one sentence right at the end of the book, and if you look at what 99.9% of the book is doing, it's the anti-feminist reading for most of the book, just by volume. A third way to understand it is the psychological tragedy reading. Because of what happened in his childhood and the way that he develops this abnormal fetish for masochism, Severin's ideology destroys his own life. At the end of the book, Severin is a bitter old man who is unhappy despite being rich. He touts incel philosophy and is embarrassed by his past. His philosophy is confined by rigid gender stereotypes where women must be submissive and men must be dominant. It has underpinnings of biological determinism. If one happens to be born a male, then you must seek to dominate females. But don't forget, by his own admission, he is a donkey. Severin thinks he understands love, but by the end of the book, it's clear he never did. Venus in furs is what happens when someone mistakes their personal fetish for the natural order of the world. Today, Severin's stupid philosophy underpins a lot of misogyny and incel rhetoric. So don't be a donkey. Thanks for watching.